All right, welcome to another micro training this week. If you're wondering if there was one last week and you missed it, I apologize. I had some things that came up right at the very end and I couldn't get to it. And so this week I'm jumping ahead a little bit earlier and making sure that I get it done. This coming week, we're going to be in Proverbs, which is an amazing book written by King Solomon or attributed to King Solomon, kind of right at the beginning there. And it is a fun book just to dive into and just to find cool little proverbs, little sayings. And so what I'm going to just do is, because we've got a couple days in this, let me just kind of pull your attention to the teaching standards, and it will kind of explain what we're going to focus on. You've seen these before, and every week we try to focus on one of them or two of them, but it's kind of like Torchies, and it's kind of like In and Out. There's a hidden menu all the way at the bottom. So right there, the hidden column, sometimes it's wise to sacrifice a pawn to move a knight later. And what I mean by that is there are some days where you're like, man, I want to do something really spiritual, but if it's spiritual, if you try to do it every day in seminary, it can sometimes backfire, and the kids, it's the same type of thing. And so what I mean by that is sometimes it's fun just to do something completely different. And the kids might not walk out thinking that was the most spiritual class I've ever had. But hopefully they'll walk out and they'll be like, that was a lot of fun. And they'll come back the next day with another desire to learn. And that's what that last one is too. Remember to enjoy your time and have fun. Now, honestly, this activity we're doing, it's a fun one. It's in Proverbs, but it's really, I wasn't trying to do one of these. This one is just meant just to have something that's a little fun to do. And obviously you can get to this one. You'll see that. So let me show you what the game is called. It's called Wise or Otherwise in Proverbs. And I'm going to send this to you also. There's actually a game called Wise or Otherwise where it has like a phrase and then the group or the individual finishes the phrase. It's kind of like Balderdash if you've played Balderdash. But here's how the game goes for Proverbs. I would play this with teams because in my own class I've got a large class and it would just be too big if we did it all individually. If you've got a small class, maybe under like a real small class, you could probably do this. It'd probably be best if you did this in pairs, though, if you've got anywhere over 12 students. So let me just go over this. The teacher plays the part of wise King Solomon. He reads out the first part of a phrase or a proverb to the class. You won't read the underlined parts. You'll see that in just a minute. Each team or individual, if you have a small class, writes down a made-up but believable ending and hands it in to King Solomon. King Solomon then reads in random order the real proverb and all the made-up proverbs. The team or individual must vote or guess which one they believe is actually correct. So they get 3 points. So if I make up a proverb and send it in and people think that's the real ending, then I get 3 points for every team that thinks mine is the right one. King Solomon gets 2 points if nobody gets the right answer. And a team or an individual gets 5 points for guessing the real proverb. We say points, whatever you want to do. The winner can get a high five. The winner can just know that they won. So often I'll say points, but I mean, you can get a reward, but you don't have to. So I've got a list of proverbs you can use. These are from the NIV, and the reason why I use the NIV instead of the King James is the King James has some very unique type of language. And if your students aren't used to writing in that type of language, it'll be really obvious which one is the real one and which ones are the made-up ones. And so these are all from the NIV. And then right here, remember, it would be unwise. The game is called Wise or Unwise. It would be unwise to play this game without pausing occasionally to talk and discuss the truths and principles in the verse. And it would be very unwise to not focus on the Savior during this activity. Now, again, at the beginning, I said, hey, we're just having fun. But make sure you can kind of do this one too, that they had fun, but they still learned something about the Savior, and the conversation and the principles maybe revolved around the Savior and his titles, his attributes, his roles, his example, whatever it might be. So here's how I would do it. I would have this phrase. If I was wise King Solomon, everybody would have a little slip of paper to finish this, and I would say, okay, here's the first one. start children off on the way they should go and when they are, and then I would let the teams come up with an ending of, a proverb. What do they think it should be? And so I would not read the underlined part. They would all hand it in. You'd shuffle up the papers, and then you'd start to read. Maybe you've got 5 or 6 proverbs that people have made up and they've sent in. Some of them will be silly. Some of them the students are going to, you'll have different students that try to make it silly. You'll have other ones that are like, no, I want these points. And so they'll try to make it sound right. And then you read yours too, or the correct one, and then you vote. Every team votes. They get to say which one they think is the right one. And again, you saw the points above that. I might do 2 or 3 of these and then pause and say, hey, let's talk about some of these that we've talked about. What do you think this means here? Or why would Solomon say this? What do you think he's trying to teach about the Lord right here? And I'd have a little mini discussion with my students. And then I'd say, all right, let's go to the next ones. And I'd do maybe another 2 or 3. I have given you way more than what you'll use. But I've tried to make it super easy so you can just take this piece of paper, go into your classroom, give everybody else just little scratch pieces of paper to write on, and then have fun with them. I would probably do this for the first day in Proverbs, just as a fun way to get into Proverbs and to see kind of some of the fun things that are in Proverbs. And then in the next 2 day or the next day, you could take one of the other lessons and dive into it there. All right. So anyway, that is just a quick little thing that you can do. Hopefully it is fun. I've done it with my own classes. I actually saw this done the first time by another teacher was doing it. And I thought, this is amazing. This is a fun way to get into Proverbs. It's a fun way to talk about these things, and everybody was having a lot of fun. All right. I hope it helps. We'll talk to you guys later.